Good morning, friends. Today we have a demonstration on basic GIS operations and analysis using an open source GIS software called QGIS. Before I go on to the actual demonstration, I want to tell you a little bit about what is open source and how it is uh, the it is a good option to take when you want to do GIS analysis. So let me first start by trying to make you understand why open source. One of the primary factors fueling uh, the software market in GIS is the size of the GIS industry. This is a line from a report in 2018 which says that the size of the GIS industry is estimated to be about 300 billion US dollars, which is a, which is growing at a rate of about 20% annually. And out of this huge chunk of money, about 75% goes into software and software services. So we are talking about nearly 200 plus billion US dollars, which goes into GIS software and providing services for GIS software. And uh, so, so the GIS software industry is very big. There are big players in it. You probably know some names already. What I want to expose to you or bring to you your knowledge today is that there is a domain of softwares known as open source softwares, which you are probably already using. So probably some of you are know about the Linux operating system or already use it. Most of you are probably already browsing through a through the Firefox browser. Um I know all of you have used VLC to play your videos and music. If you are in academia, you have probably used a learning management system, and probably it was Moodle. And if you are into programming, web development, you've heard about Apache, Python, R, MySQL. All these softwares are open source softwares. So, what is open source? Open source, primarily, when I say the word, the first thing comes to mind is that it is free of cost. But here, what the open source community wants to emphasize is that it is the free word is not in terms of free lunch or free for money, but as in freedom or freedom of speech. That means you are free to use the software without any restrictions. So now, this as these softwares are normally made by uh, volunteers or people who do it out of interest, uh, and it is community driven. So people would be asking for new features, reporting bugs, and developing it themselves, testing it themselves. So you since the source code is available, you have more control on the software. You can add or remove components as and when required. You don't want a 15 gigabyte software and only use two features out of it. You can have components of the software and use only the parts which you require. So since the source code is available, you have more control and flexibility on the software. Since it is done by contributors, has higher quality because you have more people looking at it. If I am making a software and I am selling it, then myself or a team of people, 5, 10, 50 members who are looking at it. But here the source code is available for general public across the world. So millions of people possibly are looking at the source code, finding bugs, reporting them. This also leads to having better privacy, better security, and better innovative products. Privacy, because if there is any chance that your data is getting leaked, then a lot of people are seeing the source code of the software. They will fix those plugs. Similarly, any malware, some softwares are provided like freeware, 15-day trial period, and all that. You don't know the source code, you just have an installer, an exe file. But now, since the source code is available, the program in which the software is written, you can look at the code and know what are the security flaws and possibly fix them. I have been using open source for a long time, and I have seen that lot of new features that GIS softwares provide first come in open source products and then followed by proprietary products. So the innovation is being led by open source. Now, as per GNU, which is the initial organization which launched the Linux kernel, they have a policy to define the freedom of when we talk about open source. So the freedom means the freedom to run the program. You don't have to uh, worry about licensing, paying anybody, asking anybody. You can download the file and simply run without telling your location, your data, anything, without disclosing anything to anybody. So you have freedom to run the program, to study and change the program source code. Now, since the software's source code, that is the program in which it is written, is available, you have the freedom to study it, change it. You have the permission to redistribute exact copies. You don't have to crack it or steal it from somebody. You are free to give that copy of that software to anybody legally. And lastly, if you invest some time, effort in modifying it, making it better, you are also free to redistribute modified versions of this software. So this is in a nutshell what open source is about. And in the so we talked about some open source softwares which you probably are already using, like Firefox, VLC, and all that. In the geoinformatics or GIS domain, there are also a huge set of softwares uh, for different categories of GIS based work. So, for example, so first, the term FOSS4G stands for free and open source software for geoinformatics. There may be some minor uh, changes. Some call it GIS for GIS or for geomatics and all that. The commonly used term is FOSS4G, which stands for basically the category of free software in this domain. If you are a desktop user, that means all your data, all your analysis is happening on your laptop or on your computer system, then you will probably be using QGIS, which we will be showing today. JUMP, which is Java Unified Mapping Platform, but this is also a GIS software. Ilvis is a very popular for people who've been using GIS for a longer period, let's say 20 years or so. You would have probably heard of Ilvis. It was very popular. Initially, it was a paid software made by ITC, but about 10 years back or so, they open sourced it. Now, an organization called 52 North looks after it and keeps it is under active development. Then there is MuDig. Then there is a software called Saga. This is made by some European universities, and it has a lot of algorithms built in. A lot of advanced analysis can be done in Saga. For expert users, if you've already worked with GIS, and if you're not afraid of using command line, then I would suggest that you start using Grass GIS or this software called Awesome. These are heavily used in production environments, and but for beginners, QGIS, Jump, Ilvis, these are very good softwares. If you are more interested in databases, then MySQL, PostGIS, which is an extension to PostgreSQL, are good options. If you are into programming, C++, Java, Python, any language, then these are the libraries which you will be using to read and write your raster and vector dataset to do your analysis. JIDAL, GeoTools, Proj. If you want to make web maps, something like Google Maps or Bhuvan Maps, that is, you want to display your data on a browser, you will probably be using softwares like GeoServer, GeoEXT, OpenLayers. If you want to visualize your data using some scientific tools packages, so GRADS is a popular package which people already know. There's Geoda and more. Now, to catalog all the data, because you know that spatial data is available since 40 years now, since the advent of Landsat 1, a huge amount of Earth observation data and other spatial data sets are available. So it is a need of the hour to have a cataloging software to put all these softwares in a catalog so that people can sieve through it and select only the data sets that they require. So for that, the most popular I can say software is GeoNetwork in of- throughout the GIS industry. If you are interested to know more about open source softwares, there is a very good paper published in International Journal of GIS by Steinger in 2009. This gives an overview of all the current free and open source software. Some of them may have deprecated, but yeah, this is a good paper to as a starting point. One thing I want to highlight in my in this discussion is that free and open source softwares are being heavily used for data collection. Okay, normally if you have to collect some data from field, you will take your uh, apparatus, whatever technical instruments you require, go on the field, record the data, and note it down somewhere in a copy, a notepad, something. Then you come back to your lab and you enter all that data in your system. That process, that two-step process, may lead to errors in the data, may lead to loss of data, uh, digitization errors, and all that. So a best thing is to enter the data in an electronic device in the field itself. Now you could ask, there could be problems like network connectivity and all that. So a very popular option these days is mobile-based data collection. So how would you go about it? As a data collecting officer, you would list out, okay, I want to take a picture, I want to take a GPS location, I want to note some values from the field, then put them in an Excel sheet or something called an XForm designer, and that gets converted directly into a in a mobile app. You take that app, go to the field, take the data. If there is network connectivity in the field, these will automatically get uploaded onto a server, and a person having access to that data can view it in forms of tables, maps, and so on. So this is a very popular way of doing it these days. Now this is a simple example of how it looks on a mobile. So let's say you want to collect some data about damages to a building. So you these are just like a mobile interface. You just swipe left and the new pages come keep occurring. So let's say the first page is this. You enter a value and then you swipe left, and then you get another page. You enter the details, you swipe left, and so on. You can take in different types of data. It could be a text, number, it could be a radio button, that is one option, or it could be a checkbox like multiple options, date, time, GPS location. You could take a photograph from your mobile device, or you can also read a barcode, and all that features are there. And all this data, if there, as I said, if there is network connectivity, it gets uploaded in real time onto the browser, onto the server. And if you have access, if you are an authorized user, you can log in and you can see that the data gets populated. Here we are showing an example that there are images, then latitude, longitude, and location accuracy, building type, number of stories, construction type, and all that. Now, these data sets could also be seen on a map. It can be visualized like a bar graph, a pie chart, and all that. So, in real time, you collect the data, and this is all done through open source softwares. IARS has developed an open source application, mobile application for this. It is called Q Real Time. And then there are other popular apps called GeoODK and Input App, and so on. Where could these be used? These could be used to conduct surveys, like household surveys and all that. We I'll be showing a real world example of how it was used in crisis mapping to capture images and locations of damaged areas, collecting multimedia data, audio and video, baseline surveys, and all that. So these are some success stories of crowdsourcing using open source mobile based data collection. The first project is called Manu, which is Map the Neighborhood in Uttarakhand. which was done to for damage assessment post Uttarakhand disaster in 2013. Then all the post offices in India have been geotagged using this uh, ODK app, and it is available as a separate portal on Bhuvan. Then it is being used to monitor all the watersheds under the integrated watershed management plan, and it has also been used to digitize the assets under Nehru Yuva Kendra Sangathan, that is Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India. So this is an example of how when three, four universities, all the students collaborated and they went to the field, and along that entire river, wherever the floods took place, damage was done, they took points. And you saw what you see here are basically the red points on the bottom are basically different locations that were taken for damage to buildings. That was about 1,000 points. Then damage to road about 500 points. Damage to bridges about 50 points. And each point, if you click on it, then you can see the image of the damage and different other attributes which the user had entered. So all this kind of interface can be done using open source softwares completely. uh, Finally, I want to tell you about some common misconceptions that people have regarding open source. First and very common that I get to come across, especially in academia, is that it is not suitable for making maps which are acceptable by journals or thesis and all that. Let me tell you, it is false. It is completely lies. Uh, as I can give a personal example, whatever papers I have published, most of them have maps made using open source software. Some say that it is does not have any support, it is not safe or stable. It is not that. There are private companies, big organizations providing support for open source softwares. Uh, it is completely safe. Your data or map will never become open or public. Even if you are a government or a defense based user, you can easily, without hesitation, use it. And it is not prone to any sort of deliberate vandalism. Of course, if you leave it open, then there could be chances, but otherwise, it is very stable. It is not for professionals, some say. It is made by people who work in basements and garages, and you must have programming language experience. Today, I will show you using QGIS, which is an open source GIS software. Without any programming, you can make wonderful 3D visualizations without a single line of code. Okay, so these are all false statements. Do not listen to them. If you are into academia, if you are into research, you want to start GIS, you do not need to invest uh, large sums of money to start using GIS. If you are into industry, or if you are have a big large user, for example, Survey of India is doing a national hydrology project where they have the entire basin at 0.5 meter resolution, amounting to billions of points. That kind of data, if you have, okay, fine, you can go for open source software. You are a starting user, you want to show students what is raster vector, make some maps, do some analysis. Open source is good enough. You don't need to invest a lot of money into that. And finally, some people think that open source cannot be used by commercial companies. Since this course is mostly for government officers and teachers, it may not be applicable. But if you're from a private university, please do not think that you cannot use open source, because since it is open, it cannot be used by commercial people. It is not that. You can use it. Even you can sell the maps if you make them using open source softwares. Uh, Finally, to summarize everything, I want to give you this link, live.osgo.org. Here you can download a 4 gig file, burn it on a DVD or a pen drive, and directly boot from it. You will get a Linux based environment with all the softwares pre installed with tutorials, sample data, and all that. Some people face problems while installing it and all that. If you want to try it out and you don't want to do get into installing business, simply download this file, burn it on a pen drive, and try it out. all the softwares are pre-installed. There are sample data available. You can put your own data and experiment with these things. If you're looking for more resources like more tutorials, more hands-on things, or probably books on this, there is this organization called OSGO, which is a pretty large old organization which promotes open source softwares in GIS. So they have this link called osgo.org/resources, where you can get like GIS at school, introducing GIS, general introduction to GIS, and all that. Many other resources available, which is made by universities globally, and it is available for you to access without any money. Uh, uh, so these are two recommended resources to learn QGIS. One is the QGIS tutorial by Ujjwal Gandhi. It is available on qgistutorials.com. Also, most of you are teachers, so you probably have heard about spoken tutorials, which is a project by MHRD being run at IIT Bombay. So they also have some 16 odd videos on QGIS. Let me just click on this link and take you to the website and show you where you can access all these uh, content. Yeah, so once you go to the spoken tutorial website, you can just click on all courses. You will see that there is a drop down value which says QGIS, and currently the videos are in English, but there are 16 such videos. If you click on it, then you will see right from installation of QGIS basic to advanced things like nearest neighbor, DM analysis, contour lines, interpolation are all available as form of short video lectures uh, in spoken tutorial. Also, I have some very good uh, 3 sessions of QGIS tutorials available, which are available on this link. So let me also go to this link and show you what it is. So you can just note it down. It is https://bit.ly /QGIS hyphen, this is dash IARS. So let me just take you to that link and show you what you will be getting. So if you go to this link, https://bit.ly /QGIS QGIS dash IARS, it will take you to a simple text file which has links to the 3 sessions that I'm talking about. The first session is on overview of QGIS, that is managing GIS data, creating map compositions. This is the link for the video, and this is the link for the data which is used in this video. The second session is on QGIS plugins, projection systems, georeferencing, creating vector data, that is digitizing, and how to do topological digitizing, that is snapping. This is the link to the video, and this is the link to the second session data. And the third session is on linking spatial and non-spatial data. Let's say you've taken some data from field and you want to link it with the GIS data. That is shown in the session 3. Attribute and spatial queries. This is the GIS analysis that we're talking about, vector analysis, raster analysis. All that there is there in the session 3 video, and the data used is also shared with you. So if you just note down this one single URL, you can get links to 3 videos and their corresponding data sets. Having said that, I will also show you a demonstration of how to create a 3D visualization using GIS, and I will completely be doing it online. You can follow it, and I will also download the data and show you, if you want to do it for your own area, how you can do it. Okay. Only prerequisite is that you should have QGIS installed. If you have QGIS installed in your in a Windows system, if I go to start and I type QGIS, I see that there are two versions of QGIS which installed: 3.6.3, 3.8.2. Even if you have an older version of QGIS, it works fine. Uh, so this demo that I am showing you works in almost all versions, starting from 2.12 onwards. The current version is 3.14. Uh, uh, but yeah, whatever I'm showing you works in all these different versions. So first thing that we wish to do is we want to download some uh, uh, digital elevation model. So basically, we want to uh, visualize the elevation of an area. Okay. So to do that, let me close these. We can download free of cost elevation datasets from where? Just open Google in your browser and type Bhuvan. You should see this welcome to Bhuvan ISRO's geoportal. Click on it. Then you need to go to this link which says Open Data Archive. You click on that, and you should see this interface. What we are interested in is this product which is provided using the Indian remote sensing satellite called Cartosat. Just click on that and it will say that there are different versions of Cartodem available. We will take the most recent version, which is Cartodem version 3R1. Then it will ask you to identify the grid for which you want to download the data. So if you don't know which grid your city or town belongs to, you can just click on this search bar here and type. So let's say I want to make for Dehradun. So I type Dehra and okay, Dehradun. Okay, here it comes. So you see that a small pointer is put on this tile. So basically, I'm interested in this region here, smaller region here, but I have to download this entire DEM. So no problem. Here on the left side, you scroll down to tiles, then click on start, click on the tile that you're interested in, click on stop, then click on this next button here. You will see that it is showing that this tile that I have selected belongs to topo sheet number H44G. There are several ways you could do this selection. If you know the minimum maximum latitude longitude, you could give that bounding box. If you know the topo sheet number, let's say H44G, then you can directly get it, or you can click on the tile, or you can make a interactive polygon or drawing and get the tiles. So we will click on download. Then it says you need to log in before downloading. I say okay. You will need to have a Bhuvan login account. It is very simple, just like creating an email address. So on the top here, there is a login button. You can click on that and you can click on new user here to create an account. I already have an account, so uh, let me log in using that account. So it now says welcome Prasoon. That means I am logged in. And if I click on this download button, it says your image is downloading. So I'm showing you how you can download open data set from Bhuvan website. So I have downloaded the DEM for Dehradun. It says C1, which is Cartosat 1 DEM, which was made using data sets from 2005 to 2014, the third version, and this is the topo sheet number H44G. If I click on show in folder, and if I extract this data set, I see it creates a folder called CDNH. So CDN is the Cartosat DEM, and H44 is the topo sheet number. If you go inside, you will see that there is a shape file, which is the extent of the tile, and there is a TIFF file. This TIFF file is what I'm interested in. This is the DEM over Dehradun. As I said, the only prerequisite is that QGIS must be installed. Just open QGIS. Now, QGIS is the open source software that I'm talking about. Uh, to install it, all you need to do is go to this website qgis.org, or you can open Google and type, go to Google and just type QGIS. It will take you to this site, QGIS project, and here you can just click on uh, download now, and you can download the current QGIS version. If you have a 32-bit operating system or a 64-bit operating system, you can correspondingly download the correct file. If you have a MacBook, if you have a Linux operating system, you can see the corresponding instructions. So this is also available in different other operating systems. If you are using some other operating system, Solaris or anything else, there also, if you have the permissions to build it, the source code is available, and you can build it from the scratch. The source code of the entire software is available to you. So once you install, it is about 400 megabyte file. You install it without, you don't need any license, nothing, and you should see an interface like this. Here I have project, edit, view, layer settings, and all that. This is where, this is called the layers panel. This is where all your layers get listed. This is the map display. This is where your map will get displayed, and these are different styling options. These are different panes you can put here: styling, processing. So this is the processing toolbox. All the advanced analysis that you want to do is get listed here. Let's say you want to do interpolation, you just type here interpolation, then you get options like heat map, IDW, tin, and many others. You want to do slope calculation, you have slope tools. You want to do some image analysis, all that, those options are listed here. Okay, and these options are, some of them are built in QGIS, some of them are being borrowed from GRASS, and some of them are being borrowed from Saga. So there are hundreds if not thousands of tools available here, you can use as per your requirement. So first thing that I wish to start is how to add the data that we have downloaded. So first, so if you click on layered, the first option that you see is data source manager. So all these GIS layers or GIS data get added as layers. Okay, these layers can be uh, uh, displayed in whichever way we want, in whichever order we want. So let me click on this data source manager, and there are so many options here. You can add your vector data sets, that is shape files, KML files. What files can I add? Just click on this browse button, you will see a window which, and if you click on this option which says all files, you can see that there are so many options. You can add your AutoCAD files, CSV files, shape files, even your personal geodatabases, MDB, your GPX files, which comes from your GPS device, GeoJSON, this is a popular web-based format these days. GeoPackage is the next open source format which is getting very popular. GML, GeoPDFs, very popular KML files that you make on Google Earth. So all these different files can be added. There's a huge list, about 170 odd different formats can be added directly to QGIS in terms of vector data. If you click on raster data, again there is a huge list. If you click on all files, you see you can add your ASCII grids, you can add your AirDAS IMG files, you can add your gridded binary files, GeoPackage, GeoTIFF, um, HDF files. Your modest data comes as HDF files, H5 files, then your NetCDF files, ILWIS. There are so many. So all known raster and vector data files are supported in QGIS. If somebody says my file doesn't open, it probably has not explored QGIS correctly. Some proprietary softwares, what they do is they make you store in formats which cannot be opened in other format in other softwares. These are called vendor lock. This is called vendor lock-in. These are not open formats. These are not OGC compliant. There is a international body which says that there's these all GIS softwares must be able to import and export files in open formats. That is called OGC compliance. A lot of softwares don't get OGC compliance, and then they say state different reasons, and we'll not go into that. So then there is newer formats like Mesh. If you have data in an Excel sheet, you can add using this delimited text. If you have data in a database, you can directly connect to your database and download it. It could be a PostgreSQL, it could be Oracle database, MySQL. You can also connect to WMS layers. All these web maps that you see are actually WMS layers. You can connect to them and display that data directly. Also WFS and all that. So there are so many options. The current data that we have downloaded is nothing but a GeoTIFF raster, a TIFF file. So we will go to QGIS and we'll click on the raster option and then click on this browse button, go to the folder and select this TIFF file. Okay, this CDNH44G TIFF file. Click on open, click on add, and click on close. And voila, you have your DEM displayed uh, in QGIS. Some very interesting things. If you move your mouse around, on the bottom there is this coordinate box. You will see as you move your mouse around, you know the coordinate of each and every location. You can set the scale at which you want to view it. So let's say I want to view it at 1 is to 250,000. So using this controls pan, zoom in, zoom out, zoom to full extent, I can move around in the map. So if I click on pan, I can click and drag the area that I want to view, and I can view the different areas in the image. I can choose other options. Now, so what is this color being shown? What are the values? So if you look on the map layers panel, you will see that it says the black color is 478 meters and the white color is 2770 meters. Now you can change these numbers if you click on view, panels and layer styling. You will see that a layer styling panel comes up here. You can change the minimum maximum options by clicking on this minimum maximum setting. You can It will automatically calculate the minimum maximum value or the cumulative count cut value and or the standard deviation and all that. You want it done for the whole raster or for the current canvas, all that can also be performed. Now generally these elevations are shown in a different pseudo color. This is a single band raster, so I want to display it as a single band pseudo color. So I click on this option which says single band gray and I go to single band pseudo color, and immediately you see that by default it gives it a color ramp. We can change this also and I get a new different visualization. I want this to be, there are different color ramps. You see there are so many different color ramps. You can experiment with them. I will take this option called spectral, and I see that the lower elevations are shown in red and the higher in blue. Generally it is the reverse. So we will click on this color ramp arrow and there is an option which says invert color ramp. So now I have my lower elevations in blue, higher elevations in red. Now I want to show you what is being displayed. So let me make so what it says is the first class is 478. That means all the values till less than equal to 478 is been given this blue color. All the values between 478 and 1051 is stretched between blue and green color. So all the values that you see between blue and green are the intermediate values between these two values. You can set your own intermediate values. So let's say 500, 1000, and so on. So, but 1500 and so on. But generally, for scientific visualization, we want to clearly see what colors mean what. So you can change this interpolation option from linear to discrete, and now you see that the legend has changed. It says that anything less than 500 is shown in perfectly blue color, no stretching and all. Anything between 500 to 1000 is shown as green, 1000 to 500 in yellow, and so on. You can change these classes. There are different modes of stretching. Everything is available. All you need to do is explore these different options. We'll currently keep it at linear and take the default values. Next thing I want to show you is, okay, now I'm able to visualize in 2D. Okay, this is my valley area, this is my hill area, these are probably my streams. Taking one point, I can, by looking at the map, I can probably delineate the watershed and all that. All that can be done. You can create slope, flow accumulation, fill. All the options are available here. So if I want to do a basin fill, or if I want to do, let's say, wetness index or some topographical uh, indice like topographic correction, openness, closeness, wetness, and all that can be generated from this single DEM file. Uh, for general visualization, I want to see it in a three-dimensional way. How do I see it in a three-dimensional way? So to do that, we will use a plugin. Now, what are plugins? Plugins are external software packages which are written so that you can use it inside QGIS. It could be written in Python or C++, and you can add it to the plugins directory. So click on plugin, manage and install plugins. You will see that there is a huge list of plugins available, each for a specific purpose. You have some CAD based requirements you want to digitize, like in or you do in CAD, or you have some specific requirements. You can search for it here and you will get it. What we want to do is basically display in 3D. So let's just type 3D, and I get an option which says QGIS to 3JS. Here the 2 is in numeral and 3 is in words. QGIS to 3JS. Just click on install plugin. These are all open source. You don't need to pay any money, you don't need to buy anything. All you need is a computer, an internet connection, and and preferably the current operating system. If you have older operating systems like Windows XP and Windows 7, you will come across some software issues. That is because this software gets updated every 15 days. Yeah, and so it is on the latest version generally, but it works for almost all Windows operating systems that I have seen. But it would be preferred that you have the recent one. So once it is installed, you will see two options which say uninstall and reinstall. We don't need that. Just click on close. Then go to this option which says web, and you will see that there is a QGIS to 3JS option. We will select this option which says QGIS to 3JS exporter. And before I do that, one thing I need to do is I need to change the projection system in which this session is. So currently the data is in geographic latitude longitude, which is given a projection system ID called 4326. I want a projected coordinate system. You can take UTM 43, 44, 45, and whichever uh, your area lies in. Or if you don't know which UTM zone your area lies in, you can just simply take a pseudo marketer, that is 3857. This is normally used for web mapping based applications. So write 3857 in this filter, select this, click on OK, and then go to web QGIS to 3JS exporter and click on this select this option called which says CDN 44G. Now, using your mouse, you can simply zoom in by scroll and zoom out. You can click on the left mouse button and take it up, down, left, and right. Okay, and you can use your scroll to zoom in and zoom out. You can also use your right click button to move the canvas around. Now I can see that there are hills and there is some valleys. I want to exaggerate this difference. You can right click on this DEM, go to properties, not on this. I think it is scene settings. Click on scene settings. There is an option which says vertical exaggeration. If I change this to from 1 to 2, you will see that now my hills look more steeper. So all this I was able to do in front of you using open data, open source software, without the need of any paid business. Now, oh, this looks fine, great. Uh, let us let us drape our false color composite. Now let's add some remote sensing data on top of this. So we need a satellite image for this area. Okay, so we will go back to Bhuvan, the same URL that we downloaded the DEM from. Uh, in the subcategory, we will select list 3, resource at 1, resource at 2, list 3. And now you see that the grids have become finer. The DEM grids were coarser. So if I type H44G, I don't get anything. So let's, oh, yeah, I get so many different. Inside H44G, there are several other topo sheets. You see that there are numbered 7, 9, 10. And for each topo sheet, there are different dates available. So this is 23rd October 2009, 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, and as recent as 2018 data sets are available. If you click on view, you see a small preview of it. Okay. So I was looking for something closer to Dehradun. So we will just type Dehradun here and let's wait for it to show the results. Let's go to that. So it says this is the point where Dehradun city is. Okay, I am interested in this grid. So I click on tiles. I click on start. I click on this tile. Then I click on stop. Next. It says this is topo sheet H44G03. So this is divided into 16 blocks. I'll take the most recent one which is available, which is January 18. Let's just click on view to make sure it is cloud free. And let us download this data set. So now it is downloading a 15 MB file, which is the list 3 data. Okay, which is the list 3 data for Dehradun. So let me download this and let me open it in my file folder and let's extract it here. Sorry. Oh, it downloaded the same file again. Sorry. It maintains all the files that you have downloaded in this option called download list. Okay, currently it is okay, now it is downloading correctly. So January 2018, 4th January 2018, list 3 data for this topo sheet H44 G03. If I extract it here, it comes in this folder L3, which stands for list 3, and you see that it shows different bands: band 2, band 3, band 4, and band 5. We'll need the first three bands to create the FCC. So we'll go to QGIS and we will go to raster miscellaneous option called merge. What we basically want to do is take these three bands and club them together to make a um, multi-band raster. So we'll click on merge. We'll click on this add file option. Go to this folder, select the first three bands, click on open, and click on OK. Make sure you check this box, place each file into a separate band. This will create the multi-band raster. If you don't check, you will get a single band output. Now these are, you can set the output data type. I know that it is a simple integer file, so int16 will do. I can save this as, let's say, an output. So I go to download, I say FCC, and I click on save, and I click on run. Cool. Now if I go to the file which has been prepared, I see some blue colors. It is not FCC. It is because that the bands are incorrectly arranged. You just click on layer styling. The red band will be band number 3 and the blue band will be band number 1. And now you look at it, it is the more familiar looking FCC. Here you see that the vegetation is shown as red, all the city is shown in cyan, uh, then there are hills and all that. So this is great visualization. You can download the satellite data free of cost for list 3 and view it in GIS. You can overlay them and you can view the digital elevation values below and the uh, radiance values on top. Now I want to drape them together. I want to see both of these things together. So for that, what I'll need to do is uh, I'll need to clip them for a certain area. So let me first show you how to create a or how to digitize on top of QGIS. So we'll go to layer, create layer, and there is an option which says new shapefile layer. We'll create a polygon file, and let's me call it AOI, which is area of interest, aoi.shp, and then click on OK. This AOI file gets added. Then we need to click on this pencil icon to start digitizing, and then this icon to add the polygon. So I'll take an area which is common to both the false color composite and the DEM. I will click on four corners and I will right click to stop editing. Similarly, you can digitize your city area, your forest area, your crop boundaries, everything you can digitize. I'm just showing a small example how we can create a simple polygon. So I've digitized a simple polygon. Now I want to clip both my DM and FCC for this AOI. So for that, there is option called extraction under raster by mask layer. So I say I want to clip the DEM for the AOI, and I want to, yeah, if I don't give the output file name, it will create a temporary file. You will need to save it as a separate file if you want. You click on run and it will clip the, so if I turn off all the rest of the layers, hide all layers, show this one, I can see that I have clipped it for my area. I will show it in that, okay, DM I don't want to show. Now next I want to clip it for the FCC. So extraction by mask layer, merged, which is the FCC for AOI, and just click on run. Okay, cool. You can right click on the file name itself and rename it so that it becomes easier for us. So I'll rename it as DEM and rename this fellow as uh, false color composite. Okay, I will change the band combination, and here I have my FCC and uh, DEM for the same area. I will remove the rest of the files. These are not required right now. I only need my DEM. I can change the layer ordering. So if you see the DEM on top, you can just click on it and bring it down. Or if you want the false color to come down, you can simply change these layer orderings. Now I also want to show you how to digitize a point. So let's click on, and if you don't want that point layer to be a file, you just want it to be a temporary layer, you can click on this button which says new scratch layer, a temporary scratch layer. Let's call it point, and I want to make it a point layer. What I want to do is basically put a point here and say this is Dehradun city. So let me add a attribute. I need to add attribute field. You can go to properties, fields. Uh, yeah, there is a called fields. Let us add a field. Let's call it name of the place. It is a text of length, maybe 10 is enough, or 15. So I have an attribute value called name. So for the point that I just digitized, I want to give it a name Dehradun, and I want to add another point. I think this is Mussoorie. So I'll click there and I will give the name Mussoorie. Okay, now let me stop digitizing. I will save these values. So what I have is I have uh, 2 points. If you label them, you will see that the names of the places appear. Okay, I don't want to label them now. I want to simply show them all of this data together. Okay, so we'll go back to QGIS to 3JS. Um, we will select DEM as the DEM layer, and you see by default it is draping the false color composite on top of the DEM. Now you can clearly see why we call it the Doon Valley, because the Dehradun city is in the valley of the Shivalik Hills. On the northern side, you have Mussoorie. On the western side, you have the Shivalik Hills, and there is the I think this is the uh, Yamuna river flowing here. No, Yamuna is flowing on this side. The Ganges are flowing on this side, and different other tributaries like Rispana and all that. So you can do it for your own area without any, so using the same steps. I want to show these points that I have digitized as markers. So I will say that these are spheres which are at a height of, let's say, 2000 meters. If I click on apply, what do I see? Yeah, see, so I see that they appear as points in space. Let's increase this height to 3000. Let's reduce the radius of these spheres. So these are the 2 points. I want to add labels to it. I want to add a label to it at a height of 3500 meters. So you see, or let's say reduce this height. Let's say I put it, and let me put the sphere on the ground and the label in the sky. Superb. Wonderful. Now I see that I have this great visualization which shows the two cities, Dehradun and Mussoorie. The labels are nicely up in space. with the sphere on the bottom showing. So this kind of visualization is used by many people, uh, telecom industries, to find out which is the most suitable place to put a tower, wildlife people, ecologists, urban planners, everybody who is interested in viewing the impact of elevation on the phenomena that they study. So you can export this thing as a HTML file, export to web, and uh, put it on your website and things like that. So this is what I wanted to show. Uh, Again, basic tutorials that you want to, if you want to know how to add the data, how to make a map, how to georeference a topo sheet, how to digitize on top of it, how to do spatial analysis, all that is available as part of 3 video sessions which was recorded in the later part of 2019, which is available on this link, bit.ly/QGIS hyphen IIRS. You have 3 sessions, 3 data sets along with that, and these are very popular videos on YouTube. You can go there and you can learn QGIS to start with. Uh, so that brings me to the end of this session.